Hello, today we're here with Rory Murray, who's your Kent Union President for the 2016-17 academic year. We'll be chatting to him about some of his policies for the upcoming year, also about him being VP Welfare for the past year, and getting to know him a little bit better. Rory, could you just introduce yourself and your main policy points?
Yeah, so I'm Rory Murray. I have been VP Welfare this year, which has been an amazing experience, and next year I'll go into your next Union President. I think some of the things I'm really looking forward to next year is finally be able to make some steps forward on the letting agency. So this year we've done a huge amount of work behind the scenes, and hopefully from September we might have something a bit more that we can start shouting about, and that's really, really exciting. As well as some work around actually getting university to understand the importance of extracurricular. This is a battle that Jack and Nina have been fighting this year, and I think we're really starting to get there, but it's going to take another year of talking about how important the extracurricular is, and some really exciting ideas which might work or might not around things like free sports and activities, around a whole other range of different ideas. But actually it's about time for us to start leading the way in terms of what student unions do, and I'm really excited about the year ahead.
Cool. You talk about a campus letting agency,
Yeah.
which is something you've been working on this year. Can you explain a bit more about how that will work and how it's going to be funded and who's going to be in charge of it and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so letting agencies run by student unions aren't new, probably existed for the last 10 years. I think about 5-6 years ago Ken talked about it. At the time we weren't in a position to do it, but now we've come back to it and gone, actually this is a really good idea. So I'll talk about the model at Leicester because it's the model I know most about, and it's probably the model that will replicate the most. So they have a joint letting agency with the Montfort Student Union between University of Leicester and De Montfort, oh yeah, you know what I mean, De Montfort. And they basically operate it like a standard letting agency, but it's run with the ethics of their students' unions. So actually it's about not ripping off students, it's about making sure that students are getting a house that with decent quality, and probably most importantly, not charging admin fees. And I think like that effect can't go unnoticed. So where they stop charging admin fees at Leicester, actually what happened is all the other letting agencies across Leicester followed suit. So if we do that here at Kent, the amount of money we can save for students in Canterbury is massive, and hopefully there's the possibility of doing the same in Medway in the future.
So what's been your experience of student housing then that's sort of inspired you to want to work on this
I've
project?
been relatively lucky in terms of student housing. I say lucky, like no student should ever have to be lucky in housing, because housing should be of a decent standard with a decent landlord or landlady, and that should always be there. But unfortunately where we currently live, like you're lucky when you get a good student house. But I've been quite lucky in my first year, lived on campus. Second year, lived in actually a really nice house, quite expensive with quite a lot of admin fees. But again, that's what I had to pay to get a decent house. And third year, again, it wasn't too bad, but towards the end, like, they managed to rip us off on our deposit. So it's things like that. If we start changing some of those practices and those cultures around student housing, it should be really positive going forward.
Cool. Another thing you mentioned is free activities and sports.
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit more?
So this is something Nina did a bit of work on at the start of the year, and continues to do work just as she comes towards the end of her term. So it's something that they do at Wolves Student Union and Essex Student Union. So they got the university, they persuaded the university the importance of the extracurricular, and got the university to pay, well, effectively what students would pay in their sports club society, they got the university to pay that instead. So it means actually there's no less funding for any group available. It just means that where that money is coming from different, and stops money being a barrier, and hopefully sees more people get involved in the extracurricular, which we know is really important.
So you mentioned working with the university.
Yeah.
Obviously that's a big part of any SAB's role,
Yeah.
especially union president, in terms of the ties with the vice chancellors and etc. etc. How do you see yourself fitting into that group?
I think it can be a really difficult line at times. I think at Kent, on the whole, we're lucky to have a fantastic relationship with the university, but that doesn't mean at times that we shouldn't challenge them and push them. And it's a real difficult balancing line. I think sometimes we don't always get that right, but I hope we can continue moving forward that over the next year. And as we've now just found out Julia Goodfellow is retiring next year, we've got a real opportunity to hopefully influence who our next Vice Chancellor will be as well.
So what do you see the biggest problem being for students here at Kent?
Because I don't think there is a single problem. I think every student has a different experience, and that's part of the ways the university operates, and that schools can do things differently. And I think that isn't necessarily a problem, but it poses a challenge in terms of actually how do we make sure that everyone's getting roughly the same for what they do, as well as making sure that every individual course is still tailored in the way it should be. I think that the biggest problem going forward with the cuts to maintenance grants is the amount of money students have in their pockets, and students can't afford to be here. As a real problem. And actually, being at university should be something that people should enjoy and love, and they shouldn't have to be worried about how much money they've got in their bank.
So, as we've mentioned, you were previous VP Welfare.
I am.
Still, for a bit longer. What would you say is your biggest success?
I think it's something that hasn't quite come to fruition yet, but it's starting to make some really positive steps forward. So last year on my manifesto, I talked about zero tolerance sexual harassment and other forms of discrimination. I kind of had an idea of how this might work and in practice. And actually, just before Christmas, we got some really positive news from the City Council and Kent Police. So we're just about to hopefully implement a system where pubs and clubs will have a duty on them through their licence from the City Council to tackle sexual harassment and discrimination in their clubs, bars, clubs. And I think it's a really exciting bit of work, and what it does is it stops blaming the victim, and that's what often happens with campaigning, and it's really difficult to do that sometimes because it's the easy thing to do in some people's world. But actually what it does, it tackles perpetrator behaviour, and if we can tackle things on a low level, and I hate using that word because any form of sexual harassment is totally unacceptable, but if we can tackle some of the things that we know happen, like groping, pinching, things like that, if we can tackle some of those behaviours and eradicate them in Canterbury, what it does is start taking societal change, and hopefully that'll be a really positive thing. So I'm really hoping that'll be ready to go in September. If not, it will definitely be done by the time I Kent.
Cool. And turning it on its head, what would you say is the one thing that you wish you'd been able to do that you haven't been able to?
I think the thing I'm most frustrated about is not our input, because I'm really proud of our input, but the fact we weren't listened to by the university on rent. So every year, well, this year was the first year I sat in rent negotiations, and that was thanks to work of my predecessor, Megan Wells, who did a fantastic job to actually get us in that room in the first place. So I was the first stab there. We went into that room and we were very clear what we wanted, and the university basically said that financial pressures meant that they were going to put, I think it's about a 2.9% rise across the board, some are slightly different, higher and lower, but roughly a 2.9 average across the board, and they just weren't willing to listen to us at Christmas. But actually since then we've managed to get them back on the table. We're now hopefully talking about a rent strategy for the next 5 years and what that looks like, what new campus developments would look like, and we're trying the first twin bedrooms on this campus. So that means there will be a bed on campus that's about £3,300-ish, which is quite a dramatic decrease on what the current lowest is. So it definitely doesn't solve the problem, but it gives another offer to students.
Cool. Obviously you're taking over from Tammy, who you've been working with for the past year. What would you say is the one thing that she's been working on that you really want to continue and push through? Because obviously SABs are only able to run for 2 terms, and quite often things take longer than that to push through. So is there anything that she's working on that you really want to continue to?
I think there's 2 really exciting projects which Tammy's done a huge amount of work on, but are going to have to carry on past it because things that can take time. So I think the stuff Tammy's done around college communities is really exciting. And I think at the moment most people agree that the university don't really recognise the importance of the colleges and they sort of exist. But Tammy, almost college president's done a huge amount of work in actually what should a college look like, what social space should a college have, what events should a college run. And I think that work will be something definitely to take on next year. I think the second project's the rent guarantor scheme. There's something that unfortunately we've talked about for a long time. And there's 101 different issues with that, but I really feel like hopefully by the end of this year, hopefully not academic year, but by the end of this year, that will be in place for students. So actually, if it's for some reason for hardship, or you're an international student, and you need a rent guarantor, there'll be a process for that to happen.
Cool. What would you say is the biggest thing on your manifesto that you definitely, if you achieve nothing else in the space of a year, apart from this one thing, what would it be?
That's a really tough question. I think it's something that's sort of partly was on my last year's manifesto, something that's on next year's manifesto, is looking at student employment and what that looks like. So one of the things that I talked about last year that I'm really proud of, and I'll keep talking about it, is the living wage for students. So we know that students are really struggling on this campus, and that's because of 101 different issues. But actually if students are working, then they should be paid a fair wage for that. And although it's never going to happen overnight, and we're not going to start paying living wage to either student union staff or university staff overnight for student staff, it's something that actually I think the university is now willing to have a conversation about. Look at the importance actually, why do we employ students at university? Is it because they need money, or is it because they need money and we can give them skill sets that actually they can get their next career with? And I think we're finally getting to the point when universities are really willing to have a really big top level strategic conversation on this, and I'll be really proud actually if walking away next year the university are making some really exciting moves on student employment. So whether that's employing more students, whether it's giving them higher wages, or whether ensuring actually they've got the skill set they need and they know how to use that part of the time at Kent, that's really exciting.
Cool. What would you say is your interesting. What would you say is your sort of role within the union as union president? Because obviously the title of president sort of puts over that you're the boss, but you know, how do you see yourself fitting in with the other SABs and with the staff of the union, and obviously student volunteers and just everyone involved? How do you see your
So the way I see the team is absolutely that is a team, and although we'll soon have the title of union president, I don't see that changing a massive amount. It means that I'm moving away from having a specific remit, so Clara will be taking over my remit, and I need to make sure I'm really careful not to step on Clara's toes, and if I am, Clara needs to tell me I am and tell me to stop it, and that's really important. But actually I can start working some different projects. As president you get access to a different set of meetings and some stuff around actually how the university spends its money is some of the stuff I can spend some time doing this year, which I haven't necessarily been able to this year. And in terms of like our student volunteers, I'm hopeful across the board. I'm really proud of how much time I have spent with student volunteers and saying thank you, but we can always do more. And whether it's actually that as a SAB team we decide that we're going to visit one student group a week, or whether we're going to make sure we come up to student media and say thank you, it's stuff like that, really small things that can make a massive difference. And hopefully next year I can do a bit more of that than I have been able to this year.
Cool. What would you say, last question,
yeah.
What would you say is the one bit of advice you'd give to the incoming SABs, having spent a year as a SAB already?
It absolutely has to be look after yourself. Like in this job, it's so easy to work 70-hour weeks, to be answering Facebook Messenger at 3 o'clock in the morning, but you can't do that and do a great job. And sometimes actually you do have to shut down, have a long weekend off, and then come back to work on Monday all fired up again, because you'll be 10 times more effective at what you do, and students will 100% respect you for taking that time out to look after yourself so you can do a better job for them.